and welcome to another episode of the Marco Podcast,
a show dedicated to the realness of organization and entrepreneurship. This space was created for every woman who needs motivation or inspiration to get organized and to keep going after her dream. I'm your host, Angel J. Sit back and prepare for valuable tips, resources, laugh, and much more. If this is your first time here, welcome, and thanks for joining. If you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back, and I hope you brought a friend.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I am sitting down with Carolyn Jones. Carolyn has over 25 years of experience as a financial manager in the healthcare sector, and she would see people being faced with unexpected expenses, not knowing what to do and how to cope. This is when she realized that providing tools and strategies to take control of your own finances was her life mission. She is a money coach and the host of her own podcast. And so today she is going to talk to us about a little bit of financial organization. So I know it's like the top of the year and we're all probably reeling from Christmas and holiday spending. And so she's just going to tell us how to get that organized and get back on track. So let's welcome Carolyn. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we get started?
No, you did a great job intro. Just a little bit about me, why I decided actually to become a money coach, because there are so many people out there that struggle with day-to-day finances. And as a finance manager, I just saw day in, day out, people being faced with unexpected expenses and they just don't know what to do or where to turn. Most people turn to debt and, create debt because of it. And so I thought, you know what, I really need to get out there and teach people that there's other ways and it's not that hard. And you just need to improve your financial literacy and you can make a huge difference in your day-to-day financial life. So that's the reason why I decided to, share my knowledge with the world, really.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. You took one of the questions right out of my mouth. So perfect. I was gonna ask why you decided to become a money coach, and so that's really awesome. So how long have you been a money coach? I know you said 25 years of financial management in the health sector.
I would say since 2020 is when I started. That was the time when everybody, the world was kind of quiet, and I was thinking to myself, how do I go about making this change in my life to, really reach out to other people? So I decided to go back to school. I finished a graduate certificate in financial planning because I had been in the corporate world, obviously, for many years, and so. It's been about like 2.5 years or so of doing the money coaching, but it's been super rewarding, I have to say.
Yeah, cool. You look so happy and so energetic and joyful talking about it. So I can tell that that is definitely something that you're passionate about and that you love. It's not a taboo topic, but it's one of those things that we just rather like not talk about too much, unless we're talking about how much money, we're making, but nobody's ever talking about what are we actually doing with the money that we're making? And so what are some challenges and struggles that you see with people when it comes to their money?
Yeah, well, first up, you're right. Money is a taboo topic. Oftentimes I compare it to the weight loss industry because back in the day, nobody wanted to talk about that, right? And now
Right.
we have all these programs about, losing weight and and it's easily talked about. But money has been this thing where, you kind of hide it away. Like if you have debt, you don't kind of talk about it with anyone else. And so that is part of improving your financial literacy, being able to reach out to others and talk about it, because that's where you improve. You find out, what, you're not the only one that's struggling with this, right? So that, I think, is the key, is to really try and change the mentality that it's a taboo topic and we don't need to know, and no one needs to know what our financial situation is, and explore how you can improve. That's the first step, to be honest with you.
So would you say that one of the first steps to building healthy money habits is to kind of have that mindset change and look at like your past history of money and how you learned about money?
Yeah, exactly. Like I think it's like a 5-step process. So first of all, assess where you're at, right? So a lot of people, they don't even look at what is my position in its entirety. So for instance, you know what you make, right? You know your income, but have you assessed all of your expenses, what it is that is absolutely necessary and what is not? Have you assessed how much debt you actually have? Right? You really need to know where you're at with your money. That's the first step. And then the second step is really kind of accepting how you got into this position to begin with, right? Is it because of factors beyond your control? Like, for example, was there like a health situation, a job loss? Those are things that you can't control, but they can have a major impact on how your money is, your money situation, right? So,
Right.
but there's also the other side of the pendulum where, you kind of created the mess yourself, right? So sometimes it's your fault and sometimes it isn't. But at the end of the day, you really just need to accept where you're at and kind of build the tools and skills to get out of that.
You brought up something, and I know this is like the age old question is, should I save first or should I pay off debt first?
It's true. That is a really interesting question because it depends. And that's my answer, really. It depends on your priorities. Number one thing you need to remember is that you need to create an emergency savings fund. That is the number one thing, because what happens is when something occurs that is outside of what you have planned for, you are always going to get into debt because of it, right? So I don't know, give the example of maybe your parents back home are sick and you need to fly and take care of them or whatever. All of a sudden, there's all this expense that you never thought you had to spend, and it's going to end up going on a credit card. So if you have an emergency savings fund, you're going to be able to pull that money. You're not going to go into debt, and you can use it for whatever the emergency happens to be. So I think that is really key before anything else. So that means you do need to save first, because if you don't have that, that is first priority. Now, when it comes to your debt, it does need to be top of priority as well, because who wants to spend your hard-earned money and give it all away to the banks, right?
Right.
So you definitely want to have that balance, because paying off debt, creating an emergency fund, but you also want to live at the same time, right? So it's really a balance of factoring all these different things and making sure you're tackling each one.
What are you going to do? You're going to revert back to putting it on that credit card, and then you're just right back to where you start at. And so that did actually make me look at, like, I was like, oh, I feel like I never have any money to save. And then when I do save money, I'm like, okay, well, that should just go to paying off debt. And then, like you said, they're right back where they started at. So that did make me look into it, and I opened up like just another small savings account that's not tied to any of my major accounts. Like, I don't even have a card to. It's one of those online banks that I did, and they have like a really high interest rate for it. So I opened that up, and then I just automatically had a certain amount of money to go out of my paycheck into that account. And so that I'm saving it, and I'm, like I said, I made it hard for me to access it. I don't have a card for it. It's not tied to any of my other accounts. The only time that I had it tied to another account was when I was first transferring the money to open it up. But other than that, and that has helped me a lot to not go in there and pull that out and start building my emergency fund. So I think that's really solid advice right there.
Absolutely, you're a star student, because that's I tell people that all the time. It needs to be out of reach. You can't have it tied to any of your bank accounts, because you're going to be like at the mall one day and you're like, "Oh, I really want that," and you're just going to transfer the money, right?
Yeah.
So out of reach is the best way.
I completely agree, because I've done that before too. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna like wait for. I'm like, I'm gonna open up a separate savings account and put it in there, and then it's tied to all my accounts, and I'm like, quick transfer, like we're good to
You
go.
know?
So yeah, so I definitely agree. Like out of reach, like be able to check it, but don't make it easy to access.
That's
So.
right. Don't make it easy.
So, what is a good credit score? Credit score is something that obviously comes up a lot, and a lot of people don't understand their credit score and why they need a good credit score. Like, can you tell us the importance of a credit score and a little bit about that?
I tell people, think of it as a report card. So as you're doing your different events, your different financial events, you want to ensure that you're always improving, right? If you see something that's kind of off, then take that particular thing and improve upon it. And you're going to see the difference of your score kind of increasing as you improve in that particular area. So, for example, bill payments. People think that, yeah, I'm going to pay my bill on time, and they'll pay it maybe the day before, whatever the date is due. Now, it takes time for the money to reach from your bank account to that company's account. And so it may not reach there in time. If you pass that date, it's a ding against your credit score. And so that's a very simple thing that you can change. You know what? You just, do it 5 days ahead or whatever it is, so that you can ensure that that payment reaches the company on time, and it's not going to have a bad impact on your credit score. So just little things like that you can really do to make a difference in that scoring.
Okay. And I actually used to work in collections and stuff like that. I did it for a mortgage company, and I also did it for a car company. And that is so true what you're saying about like paying your bills and stuff like that, because people don't realize that, like, even with automatic payments, like if you pay attention when you set up your automatic payments, if you say I'm going to pay it on the 13th, it's going to say it'll be delivered by the 15th, or it'll
That's
be
right.
delivered by the 16th. So if your payment is due on the 14th and you're sending it on the 13th, well, now it's 2 days late. And some people do have a grace period, but they're not required to give you that grace period. Like, it's them being kind to give you a grace period. And that was something that I ran into so much when I was doing customer service for the mortgage and for the cars. Like, people were like, well, my payment was due on the 15th and I sent it to you all on the 14th. And this was before online bill payment even became popular. So it's like, you put a check in the mail on the 14th and your payment was due on the 15th. No, first the mail has to actually get to the processing center. Like, that's step one. Like, we have to actually get the mail. It goes to the processing center. Then after it goes to the processing center, it gets separated. And then there's like 10 steps before it actually posts to your account. So you mailing it out on the 14th, it's not going to actually hit your account until maybe the 20th. And that's if there are no holidays, no weekends, no like backups or anything like that. So I think that that's something that people don't really think about. So thank you for making that point there.
Absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure.
And so how do people protect their credit score? What can we do to protect it and make sure that we're seeing that report card increase, because we don't want it to decrease?
Absolutely. And part of it is really just checking. Like, you know what? You need to be on it, looking at your credit score regularly. A lot of people, they only look at it when it's time to actually go and get a loan from the bank or wherever. And that's the time that they're checking their credit score. And that's not the time, because by then you haven't realized all these things that have affected it, right? So you need to be checking that regularly to see, first of all, if there's any identity theft, right? That is a big thing right now. And you need to ensure that the things that are listed on your credit score are in fact your own personal debt. So that's number one, is really to kind of ensure that it's accurate and that these are the things that are reflected are true to you. Because maybe you've paid off something, right? And it's still showing up on your credit score. This is the time where you go back to the company. Have you released this from my account or whatever?
Right.
And so these are the things that people need to do to be able to ensure that that scoring is correct and accurate. Make sure to be checking it regularly.
Okay. And banks make it so easy now, like, especially if you have a credit card with them. And I'm pretty sure all of us have at least one credit card, and so it shows you, like, right there when you log into your bank, it'll show you like what your credit score is, like if it's dropped, if it's gone up. So that's kind of an easy way to check it. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it once a month or once a year that you're able to access a free credit report?
Techniques.
Okay.
So it depends. It depends on the organization. So, Equifax, TransUnion, everybody has a different, so you need to look into that a little bit more.
Okay. And that brings me to another question. I don't know if you can answer this or if you are willing to answer this, but like you said, everyone has a different scoring. So when you're looking at that, like, let's say you're lining up all three of the companies at the same time. What is it? Equifax,
TransUnion
Trans,
one.
yes. And so let's say you're lining up all three of those and you're looking at them, and all three are showing different scores. which score am I supposed to go with?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really not what you're going with, it's what your creditor is going with. So it depends on the bank that you are seeking credit from, what organization they're going to pull that score from. And I wouldn't get hung up on one is like, 10 points higher than the other or whatever. Like, it's really minuscule when it comes to the different reporting methods. The idea is that you want to be within a good range. And I say around 780 is usually the average of what people should be kind of aiming for. But like I said, different organizations do it differently. So if you want to actually know what is a good credit score, is go online to their particular to their site and actually look and see, because they'll tell you what the ranges are and what the average should be.
Okay.
But I wouldn't get hung up on which company is doing what.
Okay, yeah, because I know that's something that's always kind of been in the back of my mind that, it's like, well, this one says that it's this amount, but then this one says that it's 5 points less or 5 points higher. And it's like, okay, how does that really work? But of course, they have different rating factors and different things that they
Exactly.
take into consideration. If you do see something on your credit report that is not something that you have, done, or something like you said that you've either paid it off or something that you're like, I know I didn't open this, what should you do?
Sometimes it can be difficult, but the first thing is to go to the source, right? Go to the source, the company that's saying that you owe this amount, and inquire with them. That's the kind of the first step, because them removing it is a lot easier than you having to go to the organization asking it to be removed. If the organization does it, it's much easier. So if you can prove to the organization that that wasn't you, you provide ID, identification, and they go through their due diligence, then they should be able to easily remove that from the credit bureau. But it is sometimes challenging because identity theft is so prevalent right now that you kind of have to go through loops to prove that it wasn't you, right?
That makes this that makes definitely that makes sense. I can't getting my words tongue tied here. That definitely makes sense. And it's really fascinating to kind of learn just the ins and outs of like credit and credit score and stuff, because it's kind of something that you don't really know about. Like, you need a good credit score, but how do you get to that good credit score? And so what is something, because you have to, in order to get credit, you have to have credit. And can you share with us something that, like, somebody who has maybe never had credit, how can they get credit? What can they do to start building their credit?
Yeah, and obviously the first thing that we all dip into is a credit card. It's probably the easiest to get because they're always promoting something, right? With
Right.
your own banking institution, or whether it's, they're trying, another institution's trying to get your money. It's probably the easiest is to get a credit card. But I would just highly recommend that you understand how the credit card works. So if you're going to get a credit card, they're going to get a 21-day grace period in order to pay off that credit card. So if you're new to all of this and this is your first time getting it, when you make a purchase on the credit card, use the money that you have in your account and pay it off immediately. Because this way, you are not actually using this as another source of funds. What you're doing is you're just using your existing funds to purchase what you were going to purchase anyways, and and pay off the card. Because if you do that, you're going to ensure that it's paid by the 21-day grace period. You're going to have a zero balance, and that is going to build your score. Now, people talk a lot about utilization. You don't want to go over a certain percentage of whatever max the credit card is. So for example, if the credit card's $1,000 limit, you want to stay within like 33% range of utilization of that credit card, right? So those are different things to kind of look at when you are going out to seek out a credit card. But there are other ways. So for example, a car loan could be another thing where you need to build credit in order to purchase a car. And so doing that and having a good, healthy habits when it comes to your credit card is going to actually enable you to then now go out and seek out a car loan, which is something probably a lot higher, and it's going to have a longer term. And so that's kind of how you build your score. So first start with the credit card, then maybe a car loan, and then you're going to move into like mortgages and things like that.
You brought up an interesting point. I remember when my husband and I first started dating, and like we'd go out to a store or something like that. And we'd be like buying stuff and shopping, and they'd be like, oh, if you open a credit card, you can save 10% today or something, or 25%, 30%, whatever. And he'd be like, well, if I open it, can I pay it right back off today? And some places would be like, oh yeah, you can, and other places would be like, no. And at first, because I didn't have credit cards, like I didn't use, credit or anything like that, because I had just always been told that credit cards are dangerous. You just don't want to touch them. And so I hadn't used them. And I think at that point I was like 22, 23. And I'm like, well, why are you paying it right off? Like, isn't that the purpose of a credit card, is so that you can just, use it now and pay for it later? And he was like, but why don't you just keep all the money that you came in here to pay, because you're getting the credit card? He's like, no, Angel, that's not how it works. And I'm like, yes, it is. Like, I'm like, you're the weird one in this situation. But when he finally broke it down to me, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So that you're not like accumulating debt and building up debt and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people will use their credit cards to get points because they're like, oh, well, I'm going to spend the money anyways. I might as well get the cash back or the 5% back. But I think that it's just important to remember to, once you do that, go ahead and pay off that, so that you have paid that off and you're getting the money back on it as well. So
for sure, that is the number one money mistake that people make, the largest one, which is getting a credit card in order to get the discount or the points. And what you said is that they're not paying it off in total. They're just thinking that this is now additional money that they have, when it isn't. It's really just debt.
Right. Yeah. And so that's definitely easy to just get up. And that's what we're trying to explain to and talk to our son about now, because he does have like a kid's debit card. And so sometimes he'll be like, oh, we can just put it on my credit card. And we're like, you do not have a credit card, you have a debit card. And he's like, well, what's the difference? And so we're like explaining it to him. And then he's like, okay. And it's like he gets it for the moment. And he's like, well, we can put it on my credit card. I'm like, one, stop volunteering your money for everything. Like, let's start there, buddy. Okay. Just stop volunteering your money for everything. Two, you do not have a credit card. You have a debit card. So it's just, we're trying to teach him like those money habits and things like that now. But yeah, he'll be like, oh, we can use my credit card. I'm like, no, we can't, buddy. But I appreciate it,
Yeah.
So, and I think the younger that you kind of like start with them, just introducing like money habits and stuff like that, and teaching them money habits, it helps you as you get older. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So what is one thing that people can do this week or start doing today, that will have an impact on their bottom line?
The number one question that I get a lot of the time is, I don't know where my money went. I don't know what happened. I don't know where it went. So I would say the first thing to get going is to track. That is the key, right? I know tracking is painful at times because, it's so easy now. We just tap, 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 and everything is like done, right? But we can make it easy for ourselves. There are so many apps out there. There are so many tracking tools that you can use. And if you don't even want to use some of those are really actually very complicated. You can just take the notes app on your phone and create some columns, date, item, how much you purchased. And then as you're out there, you go back to your car, you just enter it in. Right. And at the end of the week, you're going to see exactly where your money is going. And then you're going to be like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't want to spend all that money at the grocery store or wherever it is, whatever the trend is showing. But that way you're going to see some trends and how your money is ebbing and flowing as it comes in and out. So you want to make it as simple as possible. You want to make it easy for yourself. And that way you can really determine where your money is going and then set some priorities around it.
Okay. Yeah, my mom, she actually does that. Like, she writes down, like, she'll sit down when she comes from the store, she'll like write it down in her book and stuff. And I'm like, Mom, you can just check that like online. And she's like, no, she's like, I like to write it down. She said, because if I have cash and I spend cash, she's like, I don't know. She's like, I can't check my bank account to be like, well, what did I spend that $20 on? And I just realized that is so true. Like, because that's one reason why I usually don't ever have cash on me. But when I do have cash on me, I usually end up forgetting about it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then when I do remember it, it's like, ooh, I have cash on me. And I feel like within 5 minutes, the cash is gone, because in my mind, I'm like, well, it's not coming out of my bank account. It was already, sitting here so I can spend it. But then $60 is just gone like that. And sometimes I won't get a receipt, or I do get the receipt and I throw it away. And I'm like, well, where did that $60 go? So now I'm in my mind trying to figure out, what did I do with $60 in 30 minutes? And So I do try to track it when I do have cash, just to kind of remember what I've done with it. And like I said, I feel like for me, cash is just a dangerous thing because I'm just like, oh, I have it. I feel like it's free money, I guess you can say. And
Exactly.
so I'm just like, oh, I can spend it. And then I'm like, well, where did it
Where did it
go?
go?
So yeah, and it makes it hard. It definitely makes it harder to track. So well, thank you, Carolyn. Before we go, is there any other tips or anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
Absolutely. So, what I've done is created a guide that really walks through 10 ways to just strategically pay off your debt. So, that is the number one thing that I hear from a lot of people, that they're struggling to figure out, how can I actually pay this off? And so, I've created this guide. It has 10 steps. It's really easy to follow. And all you have to do is you go to thefinancialmoment.com/debt trap, and you can grab that guide and walk through it. Super easy.
Okay, perfect. And I will definitely link that in the show notes so that people can find it and get that guide so they can start paying off some of their debt. And can you tell everyone how they can connect with you or find you on social media?
Absolutely. So I'm at thefinancialmoment.com. That's my website. And all the social medias, it's the same, The Financial Moment.
Okay, awesome. And this is something that I want to start doing as well. Carolyn, can you tell everybody where you are from or where I'm talking to you at?
Absolutely. I'm from Toronto, Canada. So hello from the other side of the border.
Thank you. Yeah, I talk to so many people from different parts of the world, and I usually ask like off camera, but I was like, I want to start doing it on camera so that people can see where the guests are coming from. So thank you so much. Well, we're recording this in November. How's the weather up there in Canada?
It's not too bad. We're still holding on, right? It's
Okay.
not snowing yet, so we're good.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to someone in Canada today, Saturday, I think maybe Thursday. I can't remember what part of Canada she was in, but she said like it was cold one day and then it like got hot again. And she's like, I think we're gonna get some snow soon, but I'm not sure. Actually, I talked to two people from Canada and they were from different parts. So one person said that they did get some snow, I think. So yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Well, Carolyn, again, thank you so much. I enjoyed our conversation.
Yes. Thank you again for having me.
You're
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Modco podcast. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and learned something from it. Be sure to share this episode with a friend, family member, colleague, or anyone you think will enjoy it. Make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button. And if you love the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcasting app. That helps others to find us and gets us listed in other show recommendations. So you all know that I run on coffee, and so does the show. If you'd like to buy us a coffee, you can do so by clicking on the link in the show notes. Thank you so much, and chat soon.